here as well. So let us know if you're not seeing the screen come through, and we'll try to help you get dialed in. Barry, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to mute everybody to start, and we'll kind of talk through a few things today. Feel free to chat us in the little chat box if you have any questions. The way that we want to kind of go about this today, this is kind of a preview of, as you guys know, the kvCORE system and what we call the migration. It's not crossing a landmass, but we do have a little bit of work to do on this side. So we like to just kind of get on the phone with you and talk through this together, be able to show you a little bit about what you're going to get with the kvCORE platform as we move it over, talk about timing and those sorts of things a little bit so everyone knows kind of what to expect there. And we'll try to take about 30 or 40 minutes doing that. At the end of it, we'll go through some questions and answer with you. So if you have questions that we don't get answered while we're going through, we'll kind of answer them all there, but we'll try to pick some up as we go through as well. A couple of things to note. This is not really a full training. So what we will do is we'll talk timing here in just a second, but what we will do is we'll follow up after we move the account over to kvCORE with some more in-depth training, kind of how do you get started, how do you get a great return on using the solution, what are some of the tips and tricks and those sorts of things. What this is this is kind of the preview and information to make sure that you know what's going on and when. Okay, so let's kind of dive into to some of that. It sounds like we've got at least one person that can't hear anything still. I've got a D Gra. So I don't know if anyone wants to kind of reach out over to D Gra and see if we can see if they can hear us here. Help get them kind of set up. But we'll record this session, and if someone is missing on audio or something, we can make sure and send that out to you. So let's talk timing first. So guys, this week, today, obviously we're doing the kind of preview webinar talking about what's coming up. Next Monday, that's the 19th, we're actually running the official migration. And what that means is we go into the back end of our system, we do some work kind of leading up to it, and there's kind of a big button that we hit, not really, but kind of where we move your information from the conversion platform over to kvCORE, okay? And so we kind of move that information over. Most of it just comes over in one fell swoop, and then our team goes in and they kind of adjust and some settings and things like that. We typically will do that at night, and then the following day to 2 days, typically it's 24 to 48 hours that we tell you to, hey, if you go log in and you see one of your settings or something that's not perfect, don't worry. Our team's kind of getting in there after that migration happens. Once we're all done with the full migration, the nice thing is you don't really have to change over your own data or do anything like that. That all kind of comes with the process. The other thing that happens is your website moves over. Your conversion website moves over automatically, so you don't really have any kind of gap on that. So there's really not much you need to do during that time other than just we want you to be aware that it's happening. And then on the 21st, we've got the agent training webinar. That's an important time because we'll dive into a lot more detail than we are today on kind of usage and best practices and all those sorts of things. Okay, so peg that. If you haven't received the email for it, you'll get another email around that. And so we've got kind of a few things happening the first part of the week. As you get toward then the end of next week, you should be able to be rocking and rolling. If you run into anything or you find a setting or something like that you need some help with, communicate it out to us. Make sure that we're clear that, hey, you're running into something, and our team will definitely dive in, help you get that all kind of taken care of. One of the things that we'll talk about in our training next week is that even though there are more settings, so you go to kvCORE and there's more settings and things you can do, doesn't mean you have to go touch them all. And so you really should be ready to rock and roll kind of out of the gates with it. So as far as kind of timing and what to expect, that's what you guys should be looking for. Let's take a few minutes and just talk about, as this happens, what you'll see. Some of you I know haven't really seen all of kvCORE. Maybe you've heard some snippets or heard a little bit about it. Let's talk a little bit about what kvCORE is. And we're not going to spend a ton of time kind of going through and talking about some of the, I guess, boring information, but we'll give you a couple of tidbits here. First off, remember, we drive over 500,000 leads every month, right? This is something our company's been doing for a long time. And what that means to us, we don't say that just to say, hey, we do more than others. It's really to say we kind of understand how to do things like capture leads, and we understand how to do things like what should my settings be like to make sure that I get the highest capture rate and lowest bounce rate on running campaigns, right? There's a lot of those kinds of things that are built into the solution. And so as we transition you over to kvCORE, we've brought those things along, and it just it kind of lends to that conversation of you don't need to go tweak every setting again. Okay. There's a lot of things that we could talk about. One of the biggest things we want you to know is that as you move over to kvCORE, it really is kind of doing more to bring the full solution and the full cycle together. And so you'll see that as you get into the solution. What we advise you is don't let an area that you don't understand yet kind of deter you from using the solution. At the heart of kvCORE and at the heart of what we do is really kind of driving business for you. Okay. One last thing that we'll mention now, we won't talk about it in depth, but you may hear us talk about team solutions on kvCORE. So you're now able to have really team sub accounts. It's a paid add-on, and what it does is it allows me, as if I'm a team lead, it allows me to go in, pay $3.99 a month, and have my own sub account that is within the company's account structure. And it does a few things for me. One, I can have my own team website and customizable WordPress websites and everything underneath the company. I can also have my own lead routing, my own options for generating leads for the team, my own campaign structure, all of those sorts of things. I get some reporting and analytics for it. I get those things on my team sub account. What's nice is that I don't have any limits to the size of that team. And so whether it's one person, two people, 5 people, or 50 people that are on a team, as long as they're within the Remax Metro kind of business structure, then they can be part of a team. And that can be cross-market and things like that. So this is a very cool feature, and it's really the first time in the market that it's been available to kind of fully support teams underneath the full company structure. Okay, so we'll talk more about that. If there's questions about that, feel free to kind of send those through as we go. So just to be clear, when we get into kvCORE, you're going to see some language that maybe you're not fully familiar with. So let's just kind of go through what those are. There are these components, and if you're familiar with conversion or if you're familiar with the inside real estate solution before, you'll find that some of these are similar but not quite exactly the same. So the lead engine is really where we've brought all of your lead generation tools. Those would be IDX squeeze pages, landing pages, short codes, all of those sorts of things all into one place. Okay, so it's very easy to find them. Web is pretty clear. Websites and IDX, that's where you control those things. Your smart CRM is both lead gen CRM as well as sphere of influence. We'll look at that here today. But that's an important thing to just kind of note that it's your full cycle CRM. The listings component, or what we sometimes call the listing CRM, is really a very handy solution, and it's kind of replacing the need to have to bounce over to the MLS to go send things out or to go research them or whatever. A lot of people have felt like they've always had to have an MLS tab open, And there's some real cool use cases here where I can do a lot of that now from the back end of my system, and it coordinates with the smart CRM really well. Transactions is where it ties in with your transaction system and has kind of a seamless integration there. And so if you look at it, this is kind of the life cycle of your leads and contacts and clients. All of that is then driven by the component we call marketing autopilot. And so marketing autopilot has your campaigns, it has your behavioral automation for those that are familiar with that on conversion. It has all of those kind of intelligent automation pieces in there. Okay. And then you've got your business analytics that run across the full solution and your other kind of tools and support and marketplace plugins. Okay, so that's kind of the stuff that you see in kvCORE. Before we dive into the back end of the system, let's jump over and just kind of look at the front end. And I'm going to go use kind of one of our little demo sites, so I'm not driving leads on fake leads or dummy leads on your site here. But when you're looking at your conversion site, the biggest thing we want to note is that when you're transitioning over, again, you're not going to have to really do anything with respect to the website, okay? So everything that you kind of have set up there will automatically just kind of transfer over to the kvCORE platform, okay? One thing that is important is that if you've kind of had your conversion template as an agent and said, hey, I wish I could kind of manage some of these things a little better, a little closer, like my navigation or custom pages, or have a little cleaner line between my blog posts of my personal blog posts versus company or other team members' blog posts or those sorts of things. That's all part of kvCORE. So now you have that control. You don't have kind of someone else's post bleeding over to yours or anything like that. All of those things are kind of built into kvCORE as settings and options. Okay, so we'll look at that in a second. But really, you shouldn't have to do anything with your current conversion site. Okay, so then let's go into the back end of the system here. When I log into the back end of the system, I'm going to actually come in and see a few things. So first, I'm going to land right here on my dashboard. And I may even go in and I'm actually going to log in as a different account here. 1 second. I want to show you a little bit of the data that I've kind of got. Let me pause that and kind of log in real quick. One sec. Get logged in over there. Okay, so you'll see I'm getting logged into my account, and I just wanted to log into one that has maybe just a little more kind of activity going on in there. And so when I land here, you'll see that I get into my dashboard, and I've got a few things that pop up for me. One of them is today's summary, so it's actually going to give me, leads that I need to get back to that have some activity. I've got some calls and I've got some tasks. Now, notice I've got my summary up here, but I've also got the activity, the specific things that I need to do down below. So, yes, I have 0 calls due today, but I have 237 past due and I've got 19 upcoming calls. We'll talk a little bit more about the phone calls here in just a second. So let me go and say, hey, gosh, I really got to catch up on my calls. There they are, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that functionality. We'll address it in kind of the training more next week. But I can go write down my list of phone calls to make and say, let's make a phone call today. It pops up the dialogue. I hit call. It's going to dial my cell phone, dial the lead, record and log the call right on the lead record for me. So you can see right out of the gates with kvCORE, one of the big kind of things that you'll notice is right here on the dashboard, right out of the gates, I'm able to be very productive on things that need my attention now. Okay, and so whether that's my calls or whether that's tasks, and I've got some past due tasks, or whether it's kind of checking my calendar and it's got my calendar tied in, or whether it's going in and looking at my lead and contact activity. So this particular thing here is called my activity stream, and I can see kind of everything that's going on from just some property views to favorites to people who have asked a question on my site to all those sorts of things. And I can take action on that right here from my activity stream. So it's very handy to just kind of be able to pop into my dashboard and see everything that I have to do. Okay. We'll talk more about this in the training. Notice along the left-hand side, I've got my dashboard, I have my smart CRM, I have my listings, my marketing autopilot, lead engine, etc., all the way down. Okay. A couple of quick things we want to note here, and again, especially for those who are more familiar with what they've already been using on the conversion side, let's dive in and take a look at a few things. Okay. So first off, let's go into the smart CRM. So when I get into the smart CRM, we already kind of mentioned that you're going to see all of your leads and contacts. So it's not just a lead gen CRM or a Sphere CRM, it's really all of the above. And so when I come in here and I kind of say, hey, I want to see my Sphere, or maybe I want to see my prospects or whatever, it's all built in. My filters are now right here where I can access them anywhere on the smart CRM. I can filter down by lead details, right? Things like buyer, seller, renter, rating, all of those sorts of things. I can also now filter things down by behaviors. So, hey, have they saved a property on my site? When were they last active? When's my next phone call scheduled with them, right? Have they replied to me? So is it someone that's active? And that's handy because I can use these sorts of filters together, apply them or save them, and become very efficient with my day. So if you're anything like me, the way I like to work a list like this is I like to get in and say, yeah, let me deal with the activity I had on my dashboard. But every week I want to come in and I want to hit that batch of people who have been active, who have responded in the past. Those are kind of my hot, warm potential clients, right? And I want to take that group of people, and maybe I've got a new listing and I had filtered it down, and I want to send out my a text message with my new listing this week, right? And notice one of the people that I'm highlighting here is unsubscribed, so they won't get it, but everyone else will. And so I'm going to send out my listing and attach the listing ID and things. So it's designed to be a lot simpler to kind of take those sorts of actions and really work across my kind of entire database. Okay. Let me go in and show you a couple more things that are just a little different between this and what you've seen before. So when you guys get in to your smart CRM, you're also going to notice that I drill into my leads and contacts, we've done some work. So this is going to look different from what you see today. What we hope and what we've seen from others is that they really love the way that it's kind of broken out into three major sections here. So on the left-hand side, you have who this person is. As leads come in, as you know, they're going to automatically hit the validation system. So we're going to go check email, phone number, social media profiles, what occupation do they have. We're going to try to gather a bunch of information for you. This is one of my dummy leads, so it's not running on it. But we're going to do all of that, and we'll log that right on the timeline and say, hey, this is a 4-star lead after running our validation. But then we'll also tell you everything they're doing. So 11 properties, mostly single family in this area, and it'll kind of break all this down for you. Okay. I've got my detailed information with all my kind of additional fields and all of those sorts of things down below, right? So I've got kind of all my CRM type information. In the middle, I've got activity. Okay, so I've got my timeline that's tracking every property view. I can go in and I can take actions on those. I can call or text about that listing, right? I can kind of scroll down and I can see that I had a phone call. Notice I called this person. It logged it for me automatically. It even recorded that for me automatically, right? And so I've got all those things there. I've got notes. I've got kind of my full history all in one place. And if I had this person on a campaign, it would show some upcoming touches and it would fill in some future activity that will be here as well. This is also where my search alerts and property alerts are. So if I've got an inactive one on him now, just because this is a dummy lead, but if I had an alert on here, I would have, my locations and my keywords and all of my kind of different options for my property alerts here. Okay. And I can have it set for weekly or whatever time period. And so everything that I really need to do in terms of kind of taking actions is kind of in this area, with the right hand side being specifically for queuing up additional action. So something as simple as, hey, I need to make a phone call now, to maybe I'm talking to this lead Diego on the phone and I want to schedule out some follow-up calls. So I want to say, here's a note about what we're talking about, and let's set up a repeat call 4 times over the next month, right? And I'm going to make some calls. Maybe that's too aggressive. 3 months. And I'm going to hit save. And what that's going to do is queue them up automatically to my call list. Okay. So I've got all those sorts of things. I've got my notes. I can send my text messages. I've got my tasks. I've got all those sorts of things in the same place. Okay. And so we've really tried to make sure that your leads and contacts are easy to access, but the interface for that is a little bit different. So when you first get into your system, make sure that you kind of get in there and get familiar with those. The other thing that you'll want to just make sure you're familiar with is, again, the lead engine. Is a lot of people are using squeeze pages or landing pages or some of the lead generation features. So make sure that you come in and kind of go over, take a look at that with the lead engine, and just understand that I come in and it's a little bit different, but most of this should feel very, very similar to what you've seen in the past. So once I get in here, I see, okay, there's my IDX squeeze pages, select the website, and let's start building that squeeze page. And then once you get in here, you're going to see kind of an interface that starts to look very similar to some things that you've had in the past, just cleaned up a little bit. Okay. All in all, that is the type of thing that you'll see here. Is you'll see a lot of the similar types of functions or tools that you've had in the past. Should be fewer clicks to get to them. Should be easier to use them. We've added additional features and functionality for you on doing those sorts of things. Okay. Last thing we want to highlight along the left-hand side, and then we'll talk about kind of day one when you first get in there. But we wanted to go into the web and IDX settings. So when you go to your web and IDX, what you'll have is you'll have some settings here. This is my dummy site and my dummy account here, but you'll have some settings. You'll notice it kind of tells you what template you're on. You'll have some things already preset there with your logo and whatnot. And again, this stuff will come over from your current site today. You will see that it's a lot easier to get in at this point and start to adjust your content on your site. Okay, so let's say I come in here, and as soon as this rolls over, I want to go edit a few of the settings on my site. Well, when I come to this button and click, it's going to bring me down into my website settings. And you'll notice first thing on the right-hand side, maybe I want to change that background image up top on my site. Okay. Or maybe I want to upload my own image for that or whatever. And then you've got all of your kind of settings and things for your site. So you've got all of those things just together in here, your Google Analytics and those sorts of things. The same thing that we mentioned a few minutes ago, we'll mention again. Don't feel like you got to change things unless you really got to change them. One of the values of conversion and kvCORE and all of these solutions now is that a lot of these things are kind of dialed in and built in for you right out of the gates. So don't feel like you got to change that stuff unless you really have a reason to do it. The other thing here then is just getting into the content itself. I could click View Edit from here. I could come into the site content up above. And again, we won't go through every detail of this today, but you can come in and edit your testimonials or add testimonials to your site. You can come in and easily add the service areas. For those that don't know what this is referring to, this goes, I'm going to go use this site as an example. I'm going to come down to the bottom of the of the page here and click on one of the areas we cover. When I get into that, that's going to have a page that's automatically created that shows a bunch of stats that come from the MLS and the property listing data. It's going to show things like most popular listings. This is actually based on clicks, so what people are looking at. In this case, it's also the most and least expensive, so maybe it's the only one in that area right now. And so you can kind of see some stats and things that are brought together. Okay, so for different areas and locations, those will be created for you automatically, and you use this to specify which ones you want to show up on your site. Okay, custom pages and things as well. You can go create those. So long and short of this is really that you have some controls and features there that you didn't historically have on conversion. You have had some of this for those that have used the Inside Real Estate platform. You have had some of that historically on your Inside Real Estate platform, but it was a lot more complicated to kind of go change and edit those things. And so this is really kind of the best of both worlds that you have there. Okay. So you're going to find that there's a number of other things that we'll go through in the training. Make sure and attend the training next week. We'll talk about that. We'll also give you some tips and tricks on how to be productive. Two other things that we're going to want to talk about real quick. The first is really the mobile app. So when you come, I'm going to bounce back to my slides for this. And we're going to go down and just kind of get into a couple of the slides. So the kvCORE mobile app, note that it's a different download for on your mobile phone, whether you're using an iPhone or an Android, a Samsung or something like that. You go to the store and download the kvCORE mobile app, and it'll look different. It has a little bit cleaner interface. We'll go through this as part of the training, but that has your mobile dialer built right into it. That has all of your kind of tasks built into it. That has your leads and contacts built into it. Okay, and so that's the mobile app. And so day one or day two or day three next week, so this would be kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, when you get in and log in to kvCORE, you're also going to want to go re-download the app and get the new version. Okay. Last thing that we'll mention here is the training. And notice at the bottom of the tab, it's the last thing we're talking about today, but it's probably the first thing that you'll see and do when you first log in. Okay. So when you first log in, you're actually going to get something open right in front of you. Okay. And that's going to give you kind of your, as you see it, it's called the kvCORE Launch Trainer. You actually get one window right before this that's kind of a video, an introductory video, and then it launches you into a few steps here, 6 steps to kind of go through and get started. We recommend you go through those, even if you've gone through your setup process in the past on conversion. And so, for example, the first step is going to be making sure your profile looks right. So notice when I click on that, it'll actually just take me through the process and say, okay, click on your photo. Okay, I do that. It's going to come down and say, now click on my profile. All right, do that. And that's going to actually take me right over into the screen to do that, and it'll continue to walk me through. So the reason we want you to do that is because now, again, you do have a few more settings on kvCORE, but we also just want to make sure you know how to get in and do these things. Okay, so now it'll walk me through clicking edit and updating my information. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's what you'll see. And notice, even if I close out of it and I go back to my dashboard, then I've got my training and it'll kind of live down at the bottom of my page right there, and I can open that back up anytime. And you'll notice the 6 things we have you go through there are to check on your profile. You may already have a bunch of leads in the system, but just, again, to create a test lead, it'll take you through the process so you can see what those screens look like. Driving leads, going over to the lead engine and going through that. Importing your leads in Sphere of Influence, tweaking your website, and then really all of that leads to just having conversations through the CRM, through the mobile dialer, your calls, your daily tasks and activity. So that should really help you get started with it next week as we get the migration kind of done and you guys moved over to the new system. And then again, we'll dive into some more detail on the training next week. Okay. I know we've kind of been just talking through a bunch of this. What kinds of questions do you guys have, or have we missed any questions that you guys were kind of putting in there? Go ahead and use the chat box or the question and answer box for any questions you guys have. And Aaron, I can turn on audio for you guys now as well, if that would be easier. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute a couple of you guys here. Looks like some of you may be self-muted. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Great question. So, and go ahead. I'm seeing some questions come through. So go ahead and keep pumping those in. A question about the email in the profile. So that is a great question. Historically, there's been some limitations on conversion as to what email is used. On kvCORE, those limitations don't exist the same way. There are some account level email setup options, and so make sure and pass some of that information back through. And Aaron, is it okay if I have those guys kind of reach out to you with those sorts of questions? We'll talk to you about the email configuration options and things, but okay, great. So just reach out to Aaron with any questions on that. So there are some account level email setup things, but yeah, some of those limitations actually are gone on kvCORE. So we'll just want to coordinate with you guys on making sure that it's all set up the right way for you. Yeah, I'm seeing a couple notes about just kind of getting in and playing with it. I'm sure you will. You know, you guys will have more questions as you go through. Part of the reason we don't do a real in-depth training today is because, frankly, you don't have your logins to it yet, right? So you're going to get in there, and I'm sure you'll find other questions and things. One of those items. So I see a question about importing data. Totally agreed. So we will go through and talk about how you get your data into the system. One of the nice things about kvCORE, one of the taglines we use when we're talking about getting going is, now that you have not only your lead gen CRM but your sphere of influence CRM, and they all get to kind of take part in the behavioral automation and the lead validation. One of the recommendations we have is log in, go through your training, and then really it's upload, download, and dial, right? Upload your list. We'll show you how to do that. Download your mobile app and your dialer, and then dial, have conversations, right? It's really sometimes that simple. And so we'll definitely be talking about how you do that upload step. So good point there. There's a lot of things you can do on the custom pages. There's some questions about kind of some video testimonials and custom pages and those sorts of things. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more in the training next week. So good question. Is the phone on the computer, the dialer on the computer, the desktop dialer, is that your phone number? No, it's not. What it's doing is it's using the trackable phone number, and it actually kind of creates a little mini conference call. So it dials your cell phone, asks you if you want to accept the call, you press 1, then it dials the lead, and that's how it goes ahead and does all the tracking for you in the system automatically, including if you've selected call recording on, it'll record that and attach it to the lead or contact record for you automatically. So the way it does that is the trackable number. It's a local trackable number, and then because of that, if they call back, so let's say you miss them or they just save that as your cell phone, hopefully they do, because if they call back, it routes right to you, but it still logs in the system for you automatically. So that's, you kind of want it working like that. Oh, great question. Do you have new logins? No, you don't. Your logins will work uh, just like you've had them. The difference is you will, on that day, you'll get an email about this too, but you'll go to a different URL to log in after the migrations happened. But your same login information will work as you do that. So you should be in good shape there. If you turn on Google Sync, there's a question around Google Sync for contacts in kvCORE. Will it create duplicates or conflicts? You know, we work hard to kind of make sure that we dedupe in the system. As far as kind of Google Sync out, or if you're sending the leads anywhere else, it's much harder to control it kind of there. But we do a lot of deduping within the system, so that includes not only contact syncs, but it also includes leads coming in from other places. So whether it's a website lead or a Zillow lead or something like that, we definitely try to employ some pretty smart lead deduping. So that should be in place, and we can kind of talk a little bit more about that on the training as well. Training. Aaron just wanted to point out that there'll be trainings running every week for a while, and so we'll have the training next week all together. But ongoing, there'll be ongoing trainings, and there's some trainings kind of for your team and people, but we're always doing trainings. We always do webinars, we always do trainings, we try to do ongoing tips and tricks webinars too. So there should be a lot of opportunity to get training. And as always, once you get into kvCORE, the other thing to note is that down in the bottom right corner, you always have access to that, right? So you can kind of get a hold of our support team. People love the live chat. You've got your kind of join a training session or schedule a call and things as well. And so we encourage you to, if you have a specific issue, we encourage you to kind of leverage the live chat and things, but it's probably most effective for your time to actually go. Oh, my screen's not sharing here. Let me make sure this is caught up to me here. There you go. Now you can see it. So you can see this down in the bottom right corner of the kvCORE screen, where I can just kind of click on this, and I have options to get support. The most effective thing is to really leverage kind of the support portal. Okay, and so when I go to support.insiderealestate.com, oops, it's going to try to log us in because we're already logged into the system. But when you go to support.insiderealestate.com, it'll give you options to drill down to kvCORE support articles and videos and those sorts of things. You can search across it. That's probably one of your fastest ways to get questions answered. But you can always pop in and live chat or work with support directly as well. Okay, so you'll definitely have a lot of options for that. Okay, yeah, this is a good question to just touch on real quick, and then we'll get into some of this a little deeper as well. One of the questions is, okay, so I have my sphere of influence and I have my leads, but is this kind of truly a full cycle CRM, including prospecting? And the short answer there is yes, it is. So when I come into my smart CRM, I'm going to collapse that sidebar there. But notice I can come into my filters and I have a sphere contact type or status. I've got a prospect status. And if you think of these are kind of like status buckets, right? So sphere is kind of the place where when I import all my contacts, right? Sphere is the place where these are people who I know, or, to some degree, right? Sometimes it's just my general contact list. Sometimes it's friends and family, and you can tag them. And we'll talk about best practices here. But that's kind of who the sphere is. Prospects are often things like a FSBO list or expireds or something like that, right? They're a true kind of prospecting list. Office managers sometimes use this as kind of a recruiting prospect list, right? It can really be pretty multifunctional there. but you can import directly to that with tags and all of those sorts of things, as well as right into my newer active leads, clients, contract, closed, and then archived. Instead of deleting leads, I archive my leads and contacts if I need to get rid of them. But you really kind of cover all of your things there, and then my tagging is kind of the flexible way to kind of categorize or tag those groups. Okay. Um, Again, we won't get into full detail on it today, but those things can all kind of coordinate with some of the tools in my marketing autopilot. So within my marketing autopilot, that's where my campaigns live. And so I can have kind of some smart campaigns that include emails, text messages, tasks, reminders, all those sorts of things can be part of smart campaigns. And I can have those set up for prospects, and I can have them set up for leads, and I can have them set up for other statuses. Okay. And again, we won't go through it in detail today, but same thing with my behavioral automation. I can just decide, are they running for everybody or only certain contact types? Okay. The data that you have in your system, so your hashtags and all of those sorts of things do come over. So again, part of the migration, part of the reason that we kind of tell you guys how this is going to happen, and we do kind of, especially the following 24 hours or so, we do some kind of checking in the system, is because we're making sure that, yes, we got all your data, we got all your hashtags, we got all your stuff coming over into the system. So those should all be there when you go get logged in the first time. You'll also see, as a side note, part of that is you'll also see some of these things coming in, right? So as you get logged into the system, especially a day or two after, you're going to start to see all of your calls and things, and it'll just be a little clearer, cleaner, and kind of more options than you've had in the past. Okay, great questions, everybody, and I know we've kind of taken a few minutes to go over those, but if you have any additional feedback or questions leading up to it, if you can kind of funnel those over to Erin, we'll try to kind of capture those en masse, meaning if you send them over to her, 2 or 3 people may send the same question. So we'll try to kind of capture those things and either pick them up in the training webinars directly, or we'll kind of send some communications out. But we're super excited to have you guys get over to the new platform, and can't wait to do trainings and things together with you. Thanks again, Erin. Thanks, everybody.